My name is Rachel Gibbs. I am the Events and Social Manager here at Identity Automation. So today, our presenters are Harish Shander, Director of Product Marketing at Clever, and Carter Dunbar, Director of Product Marketing at Identity Automation. In today's webinar, Clever and Identity Automation, Conquering K-12's IT learning challenges with one end-to-end offering, we will explore the role identity management plays in delivering online safety and maximizing instructional time.
Thank you, Rachel. Hello, everyone. Happy Teacher Appreciation Week. Woo! My name is Harish Shander. I lead the product marketing team here at Clever, and I'm really excited to be chatting with you today and really dig into our new account provisioning and lifecycle management solution called Clever IDM Enterprise. I joined Clever about 6 months ago after a career in digital marketing and brand management. And really, I am passionate about helping students to learn and grow. I love getting to do this with my own 6- and 8-year-olds. And I really feel the privilege to support all of you in helping your districts unlock new ways for all of your students to learn. And so now I'll kick it over to my co-pilot today, Carter Dunbar.
Yeah, thanks, Harish. So my name is Carter Dunbar. I'm the Director of Product Marketing at Identity Automation. And my professional career can actually be broken up into 3 different stages. First stage, I spent my 20s actually as a high school teacher. So I was a high school teacher and coach, and moved out of that when I moved into the 30s. Excuse me. Still wanted to service the education industry and be helpful and of use. But the way I did that in the second stage of my professional career was as an IDM consultant, where I went around the country doing IDM implementations of various third-party vendors and platforms for different K-12 districts, organizations, higher ed universities, things of the sort, before moving into my third stage, which was here at Identity Automation, where I'm the product marketing director. So where that leads us for today, what we want to talk about, Harish and I want to one, go on to the theme of the week, which is teacher appreciation, and that's really educator appreciation across the board. Teachers have been doing a fantastic job, but IT has been doing a fantastic job, and education administrators have been doing a fantastic job since COVID hit. You guys have been trying to hit moving targets throughout the year. And so the first thing we want to do is applaud you and appreciate you for the work that you guys have been doing. And we wanted to take a look at where does that leave us? What is coming out of COVID? What does the landscape look like for K-12 from a security standpoint? Second thing we want to touch on is the partnership that has developed between Clever and Identity Automation. What is it? Why did it come about? And why does it matter to the education industry and to you guys individually? Next, we want to talk about Clever IDM Enterprise, the new product that is here. We want to touch a little bit on why it came about, what it does, the benefit of it, before jumping right into the product itself and take a look at a demo. We want to get hands-on. What does a deployment look like? What does the product look like? What does it do? Before, at the end, the final step is what's next. So how do you reach out? How do you get more information? How do you move forward so that you can leverage this for your district? So starting things off, Harish, there are 3 numbers with absolutely no context on the screen right now. What do you think those might mean?
Looks a little bit like my elementary school report card, Carter. A little bit of not so good, a little bit of good, and pretty good.
That's fair. I'm not going to guess which one was PE, but yes, that could be it. That's actually not what it is. So at Identity Automation, we recently partnered with Pulse to do a research study across K-12. And what we found was 61% of K-12 organizations, it took up to a week or longer for students and teachers when they joined the district to get access to the tools that they needed. The next one, 92%. 92% of K-12 organizations experienced a cyber threat since the onset of COVID. So basically everybody. But then legitimately everyone, 99% is the number of districts who plan to keep some form of virtual learning post-pandemic. So what does this picture paint from what we found? What we found is there's a large number of districts that's still out there using manual processes or homegrown scripts that they developed themselves to handle account and access provisioning. We found that the security threat for districts has done nothing but grow during the time of COVID. And yet coming out of COVID, the virtual learning environment is not going away. The technology proliferation in the classroom is here to stay. And so we've got to build a robust infrastructure to really protect it. Harish, where does that leave you?
Yep, that's totally right, Carter. COVID has really caused a huge leap forward in the level of digital experience of our teachers and our students. Let's be clear, my kids know more about how to use Zoom than I do. But as Carter mentioned, this also means that districts have more exposure to malicious actors and openings in terms of IT vulnerabilities. And the traditional bounds of the physical classroom, the physical buildings and networks of schools are not really the perimeter of security anymore. This came to light last year in June when the FBI specifically advised of threats to K-12 specifically. And then unfortunately by December, we saw that more than half of the ransomware attacks in the US in the fall were to K-12. Now, not only are these demands of districts for hundreds of thousands of dollars and threats of PII for students and teachers being leaked, but these threats caused school cancellations and disruptions to student learning. So putting this in context a bit more, there were an average of 2 cyber attacks per day last year on K-12 school districts. And at Clever, we're proud to be able to provide students and teachers seamless access to their learning applications, but we also want to ensure that access is safe and secure.
Yeah, so Harish, what you touch on right there, it is the classic battle between access and security, user experience and security. So when I was working as an identity security consultant, this was what we were constantly talking with organizations about. We want our users to be able to access things as simply and quickly and easy as possible. That's awesome. On the other hand, you want it as secure as possible. And that's a push and pull that for the longest time, you have to sacrifice some to get the other, and there's give and take on both sides. What we want to do is figure out a way to really strike that balance of how do we provide a level of access that makes sense for a 5-year-old as it does for a 55-year-old who has a PhD, while making everything secure across the board for everybody.
That's right. So as we ramp up school next year, there's a sense of relief that things are going to get back to normal, but we also expect it to be a new normal. And student and teacher digital adoption is not going away. It's going to stick, and there's going to be more tech usage both in and outside of the classroom. So how do we ensure that the right folks have the right level of access to the right resources to create the safe learning environment for this new way of doing school? At its foundation, it's about having strong identity management. This is provisioning users, managing them through the life cycle, and then deprovisioning them, and doing it all automatically. So you're connected to the SIS, the HR systems in a fast, easy, and really hassle-free way. Then we want to ensure that classes can easily set up and manage all of those rosters with learning application partners. And then finally have a seamless single sign-on process and portal that your education community and can access, can engage with, and then finally benefit from these investments that you're making in digital learning. Clever's been a solution for so many districts relying on rostering and SSO in our Clever portal, but we definitely heard the need from districts to not only roster, but to provide account provisioning using Clever. And that's why I'm really excited to chat about Clever and identity automation provisioning, Clever and identity automation partnering together. What we really saw was a best-in-class opportunity to bring identity management to our districts by leveraging the RapidIdentity platform and integrating it with Clever. Our two companies' missions are really well aligned. We are about believing in the power of technology to shape education and unlock new ways of learning for all of our students. And so with our partnership, we're really excited to bring districts a one-stop solution for the new way of doing school by adding account provisioning and identity management to Clever Secure Sync rostering and single sign-on and Clever portal. So introducing Clever IDM Enterprise. It's our new comprehensive identity management solution that we built with identity automation, and it provides enterprise-level customizable solutions for user provisioning and lifecycle management. So there's a few key benefits, I'd say, of using Clever IDM Enterprise, which really makes it valuable to our Clever school district. And this is one, most importantly, Clever IDM Enterprise automates the manual processes that can be time-consuming for your teams. Second is fast implementation. Because your data is already in Clever, Clever IDM Enterprise can be implemented much, much faster. And we're talking days, not months. And Carter's going to be walking you through this entire flow later on in the presentation so you can really see it in action. Last, I wanted to talk about the price of Clever IDM Enterprise. Equity has always been at the heart and founding of Clever. We believe that technology has the ability to empower teachers to create new ways of learning and to improve educational outcomes. And so we want that for all students, and to be able to access EdTech and do that in a really secure way. And that's why our Clever digital learning platform is and always will be free for districts. And what we mean by the digital learning platform is what you use today to connect to your education community, to your digital resources. And this includes Clever Rostering and SSO, the Clever Portal, our analytics solution, and even now our messaging solution for teachers, students, and parents. And that's all in one place. Clever IDM Enterprise is an optional technology solution that can be seamlessly integrated into Clever's digital learning platform. But we definitely believe there's huge value for districts to use this solution. And that's why we're pricing it at $1 per user per year. And there's no additional costs for setup or support, no hidden fees here. It's at the fraction of the cost of other identity management solutions in the market. And that's really because we want to be able to support all districts in having access to improve this really important piece of user security.
Yeah, and Harish, I really want to touch on these points here and why this is a game changer for the K-12 space. So in my time as a consultant, every district that I spoke to understood the value of what identity management automation would bring to their district. So there's operational gains and efficiencies. My teachers and students get day one access. So as soon as they join the organization, they get exactly what they need when they need it. That helps the end user. That helps automate tasks to let your IT staff go do other high value things for the district. That all made sense. From a security standpoint, the flip side of that, the deprovisioning aspect. So when somebody's role changes in the organization, when somebody leaves the organization, it automatically revokes that access immediately, and it manages throughout the life cycle to make sure that nobody's overserved access. All of the benefits always made sense, but the rub always came back to what we talked about with that pulse survey. Why were so many districts today still not implementing IDM solutions? And it really came down to two reasons. It was the cost and the implementation. So IDM solutions and products are expensive. They are also very, very effective. But to make it really work, the implementations themselves take time. There is complexity. There is a lot of upfront consultative work to try to understand what the solution needs to be and needs to do and all of that. And so when Clever came to identity automation and said, we want to partner together to create this type of IDM tool, and we need it to be deployed in 2 days. We were like, that's fantastic. We would love that. That's not doable. That's not possible. And anybody who claims that it is selling you snake oil. But the more that we talked and the more that we brought on the smart people to think through this challenge, we found that there actually was a way to do this. And that's what became Clever IDM Enterprise that we're going to talk about today. So the benefits, before we get to the how we're doing it, the benefits, the features of Clever IDM. So you are automating the provisioning, deprovisioning, and full lifecycle management of your accounts in Active Directory, Microsoft 365, and in Google. You are able to delegate administration and provide end user self-service so that there is a single place to do user administration that then proliferates and syncs to all of your systems. So you're not having to go to multiple places and try to remember to do different things. You're able to not only manage your users, but also your groups and your roles. So being able to put very complex group and role membership filters together so that that process is automated. So only the right people have the right amount of access for the right amount of time. And then the last thing, we're talking teachers, students, staff, all of your traditional users within the district. But what about your identities outside of the district? So these could be your vendors, your contractors, volunteers, people who don't exist in your SIS or your HR system, people who aren't even a part of your organization, but they're on site for a day or two and they need access. Traditionally, what would happen is somebody would call IT and say, create an account for this person. They do that and then they go back about their lives. And if the person forgets to call them back and say they no longer need it, or if the admin forgets that they need to go in and deprovision it, that account could be sitting out there in an active state with live credentials indefinitely. This is a huge security risk. This is a threat vector that is out there and exists. The sponsorship module of Clever IDM Enterprise removes that risk because it allows you to very, very simply and easily go in, create a temporary account that you are sponsoring, that you set for how long it needs to exist and when it automatically expires. So all of this sounds fantastic, and it can be delivered in a couple of days. How can that even be possible? So the reason it's possible is because we were able to unlock the power of Clever in this process. So districts who are leveraging and using Clever today, you are already going through the process of uploading your users and syncing them to Clever. They're already getting pulled and automatically synced in. Because that data is there, your users exist in Clever, the data is in a normalized fashion, and it is organized in a way that is repeatable time over time. So all Clever IDM Enterprise has to do is plug into Clever, and that proves, or that serves as your source of truth for identity data. This is a game changer because the biggest hindrance in an IDM implementation is how do I get the data and how do I make sense of the data? By inserting Clever into this process and unlocking the power of Clever, we allow ourselves to remove that variable and just get to work. So you have your user population in Clever. Clever IDM Enterprise is the plumbing behind the scenes that then ties in to AD, 365, and Google and handles all of your lifecycle management from that point forward. We'll see what that looks like. So that makes sense for IT people. If I'm not an IT person, so I was a teacher. I was a high school teacher. I taught world history. Why do I really care about this? Here's why IDM matters to the end users themselves. Pulling just a random example out. Meet Carter. Yes, that was my actual ID photo. I don't know why people took it like a passport photo. I chose to have fun with it. School name has been removed. But when I was hired on as a teacher, I came into a district that was using manual processes. Excuse me. I got hired in May before the upcoming school year, but my first date, my start date, wasn't until the first day of teacher prep week. When teacher prep week came, I was issued a laptop that I could not log into because I did not have a network logon account. I then waited Monday until Tuesday, and then until Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It wasn't until the Sunday, the day before my first day as a teacher, that I was even able to log into my laptop, let alone any of the applications that we were going to be leveraging. So I had to spend teacher prep week doing what we did back in the 90s, which was putting up posters, getting my drawer filled with construction paper and pencils and stuff like that, which was useful, but at the same time, that's not 21st century education. And it was a struggle for me as a new teacher coming in. And for my students in that first period class, they were like, did you even prepare? And I was like, no, kind of didn't, because I didn't have access to be able to. Even worse, after I went through my years of teaching, when I left that district, when I left that organization, a year after the fact, just because I was doing this for other districts now, I went to see if I could still log into my email address. And lo and behold, a year after I had left, my email was still active. I could send email from the district domain out to anybody that I wanted to. I could access these applications, which allowed me to communicate directly with kids. Didn't, but that is a huge risk. Don't do that. So there's the flip side of getting the access immediately is incredibly important, but at the same time, taking it away in a timely manner is equally as important. So let's look at the flip side of this. What's a different version of this story? Meet Jeff. Jeff Johnson has been hired as a new teacher in a district that leverages Clever IDM Enterprise. And because they leverage Clever IDM Enterprise, when Jeff was hired, he was already synced to Clever in their regularly scheduled sync. So within 15 minutes of Jeff Johnson showing up in Clever, he has a digital identity that's created within Clever IDM Enterprise. And from there, he has accounts that are provisioned in AD, Google, and 365. Like that, it happens, it's there. So from the IT standpoint, all of the IT work is now done. All of the accounts are provisioned, he has the access that he needs, it's there. But there's still the end user component of this. How does Jeff know how to access these accounts, and how does he get that access? Jeff goes through what's called a claim my account policy, where he can securely claim his account. he would go and enter in his email address and his SysID by identifying himself. Those are things, the SysID is something that only he should know. He then is able to create a first-time password for himself that is unique to only him, but enforces your district's AD policy. So no longer is he having to have just a generic password that everybody gets and go in and reset. This allows him to onboard securely. And at the end of that process, he's going to answer his challenge questions so that he can be set up in the password self-service reset. So anytime he may forget his password, he can go in and just answer the challenge questions to reset it himself. Then Jeff just logs into Clever and he gets to work. And he does what I couldn't do, which was on my first day on the job, actually get in and do my job. So all of that sounds fantastic, and that sounds too good to be true. What I want to walk through now is the actual setup and configuration of Clever IDM Enterprise. I want to put the product out there so that you guys can see it. And one of the things that I want to highlight is there are other tools that are out there that they say can be deployed in days. But a lot of the time, what I found as a consultant is they would say, yeah, we can do it in days. Give us your information, and then we're going to walk away and do something in a black box, and then come back when we come back and tell you it's done. That's not what this is. But setting the stage of what a traditional IDM implementation looks like. When I was a consultant, if I was brought in to implement a third-party tool where I was automating the identity management of teachers, staff, and student accounts and groups in AD, Google, and 365, I might have put together a project plan that looked like this. It might have been 2 weeks up front to do discovery interviews, design, try to do some data analysis, schema mapping, use case definition, process definition, get some Visio diagrams going, all of the soft skill stuff. Then 4 weeks to actually go in and do the coding. So take all of that data, go find a way to grab the data, make sense of the data, and then code the solution to do with the data what I want it to do. Next, I would spend a couple of weeks testing it to make sure that it actually lived up to what we had built out in the design document before finally handing it over to the district, giving them a week to test it, bang on it, make sure that it was good and see if they could break it before we finally went live. So this schedule would have been 10 weeks in duration, would have been the plan. God forbid anybody go on PTO. God forbid anybody have any other priorities going on or any other projects that they're working on to where they couldn't 100% dedicate to this. Or if there were processes that needed to be defined and decisions to be made, this could stretch out to 3 months, to 6 months, to a year. It gets long, complicated, painful. It takes a lot of time. That's the traditional way. And there's still a place for this and there is value in it. But for Clever IDM Enterprise, it's different. By unlocking the power of Clever, what I'm going to show you right now is the implementation. So what you see on the screen right now, this left-hand column, this is your implementation. This is what the deployment of Clever IDM Enterprise looks like. There are a couple readiness steps that you would take before getting to this screen. So specifically, since we're going to be connecting to Active Directory, to Google, and to 365, there are a couple of steps that you must take to set up that connection. So in Active Directory, there's an identity bridge that you would set up that allows for secure connection directly from the cloud to your AD and only to allow that connection, as well as installing password filters on your domain controllers. Now, what the password filters don't do is grab your passwords and send them back to Clever or to Identity Automation for us to view and do what we will with it. What they do is capture those passwords that are getting set in AD so that they can be synced to other systems and platforms. This is something that some of the other offerings in the industry don't have the ability to do. That setup takes about 5 to 10 minutes to be able to set up the identity bridge and your password filters. It's literally just a wizard that you click next, 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 done. In Microsoft 365 and in Google, you would need to go in and just create, in Google, a console project. You need to set up the OAuth and decide what account is going to be leveraged by the system. All of that, if you sat down in one afternoon, you could knock it out and be ready to go. Once you're ready to go, you come here through your implementation. So the first step, these first 3 tabs here, we're going to check your Active Directory bridge that you set up. We're going to check the account and password and just verify and make sure that that connection is there and there are no issues. Then we go to 365, we enter your tenant ID, your client ID and secret, and the account that you're going to be using for the system, and we verify that that connection is set up. And then the last one is Google. You enter your client ID, client secret, your admin account that is going to be used by the system. You are going to submit that. And once that is done, you have now plugged into AD to Google and 365. These are out of the box native integrations that have been built into the platform that just that quickly you are set up and connected. So the second step, once you've actually plugged in the wires, you need to bring in your identities. So there's 2 steps in that process. The first one, I need to import my users from Active Directory that are going to be included in this management. So let's just say this district is Harish ISD. It is a very prestigious school district. It is by request only, and you have to wear a cardigan if you're going to be entered into this school district. So within that, let's go to notifications at hisd.edu, your Clever district ID, which is captured in the onboarding process, and you don't even need to know this. I then go from my users and I say students, I want to include them. So in Clever, is their unique identifier the SysID number or their student number? Let's say it's their student number, and in AD, I'm storing that unique identifier. That student number is in the UID attribute. So what this is doing, what this dropdown is doing is actually going querying your AD and pulling back all of the attributes that are available there. For teachers, I'm going to select the teacher number in Clever and the employee ID attribute in AD. So for students and teachers, they are the ones that are typically in your Clever portal already. So by having them there, I've now identified to grab them in. Harish, what about staff though?
Absolutely. So many Clever districts already have their staff within Clever synced, but adding staff really allows having one consistent unified source of information, all of that to be set up to automate your account provisioning and lifecycle management. But if you don't have your staff in Clever, it's easy to do. Being able to set up some custom data extension fields like job code or building, uploading those to Clever really allows you to support some common OU setups that we see districts have. So not a problem and something we can absolutely help with.
Beautiful. So Harish ISD, as the forward-thinking district that it is, they already have staff in, let's assume. So their staff ID is the unique identifier in Clever. They're also using employee ID in AD. For groups, the OU that groups are stored in, I'm going to search through, and what this again is doing is querying the actual Active Directory domain that it is tied to that we set the bridge up for to pull all of your OUs back. So my groups are here in groups. And now I can import. One important thing to note is right here, the log only button. When this box is checked, anytime that box is checked and I click import, submit, anything of that action, it's not going to take any action. What it will do is provide for me a log of here are the actions that would be taken if you turn this on right now. So I can review it and there are no surprises. But by entering in that information and clicking import, I pull all of my users out of AD that already exist in Clever into Clever IDM Enterprise. So I set that base object within the identity store so that they have a digital identity created. My next step to finalize the import process is to now pull out of Clever IDM, or I'm sorry, pull out of Clever with Clever IDM. So I want to set my policies. I have teachers, I have students, I have staff. So for my teachers, I'm going to sync them to Clever IDM Enterprise. And right now I've got them selected to sync to AD, to Google, and 365. What if I don't want 360? Then 365 and Google are gone. Maybe I want just Google. You can have just Google. If you want all 3, put all 3 on there. And so it's as simple as a checkbox to leverage the out-of-the-box integrations that are there. So for my teachers, I'm going to be syncing them to AD, to Google, and to 365. It queries the domains that I have available within Google and 365 for me to select which one is my email domain. I'll then choose my username convention, my rename option, whether I want it immediate or manually, and then whether I want accounts deleted or never deleted. If I want them deleted, then I just say how many days after they're disabled before they're deleted. So let's say 180 days. And then I can set some thresholds to make sure that there are no erroneous syncs where too many actions happen that shouldn't be happening. So if I want to set the disable threshold at 2000, that means at any job where it hits the number 2000 users being disabled, it would automatically stop, kill the job, and say, hey, come look at this with a notification being sent. And then it's just rinse and repeat. What do I want my policies for students to be? What do I want my policy for staff to be? And then I run it. I have the same option here of log only or not log only. And once I begin that sync, it is pulling the information out of Clever into Clever IDM for the users that we just imported from AD, filling out all of their identity data that exists in Clever, syncing that and tying it all up. So I now have everything that I need to get started. I want to pause for just a second and just reiterate what we just went through in about 6 minutes is what I would have spent a month on in an IDM project when I was a consultant. This is the game changer, and this is the power of Clever in this process. Because I know where that data is, I know where it's stored, how it's stored, and what it's going to be, I can automate all of this to where it's just out of the box and goes. So I've now hooked up and connected to all 3 systems. I've imported my identities. I've set my policies as far as what I want the actions to be. The last thing I've got to do is placement. So in Active Directory, I could come in here for students, select my default OU, my disabled OU, and then I just add a policy. So I would set whatever I want the policy to be. I would check my users here. So let's say it is Pineapple Elementary students. I would call this policy, if I could spell, Pineapple students, and I would add a rule that says anybody at the school Pineapple. Doesn't matter what grade they're in. Based on our OU structure, we have a single OU for students under Pineapple. I'm going to have them included and they're automatically going to go here. If I needed more granularity than that, I could do that. I can add or statements and statements. I can build the filter to make it whatever I need, as granular as can be, to get the appropriate users in the right place. And I want to also highlight this because this is the difference between a directory sync tool and an identity management tool. In a directory sync tool, it is going to say whatever your structure is in AD, we can sync that to other systems as long as those other systems mirror what you have in Active Directory. In here, it doesn't matter. You set up AD however you want it for students. You set up AD however you want it for staff. You set up Google for however you want it for students and for employees. And when we say employees, we mean teachers and staff here. And then the last thing is in 365. So in Microsoft 365, there's actually not OUs for users to be put in, but what you do have is different licenses to be applied. So with this, what I want to make sure is in Azure, for my employees, we are going to give them a business premium license, but in that plan, it comes with a lot of different features. Maybe I don't want everything in that business premium license to be available to my teachers. So, common use case that we come across, our teachers use both Google and 365, but Google is what they use for their mail platform. If they use Gmail, we don't want them to have a mailbox in 365. How do I make that work? I come down here and I find the Exchange and I turn that off. From there, I'm done. My next option is to go live. So this is everything from a user and account lifecycle management perspective. I can run a test run first to see all of the logs of what actions specifically are going to take place on which users so that I can get the results, review the logs, make sure that it's accurate before I turn it on, and then I can turn it on. So again, I'm going to belabor this point. We just spent 12 minutes going through an IDM implementation. Now it'll take a little more time to actually go through and build out your OU structure. I get that. I don't want to say it's a 12-minute deployment, but what you've seen is what it would be. So along the way, those readiness tasks of setting up the bridge, doing your work in Google, you can do that on your own via documentation, or we can have somebody on the line to help out and walk you through that. You're not alone. Going through this process, we would handhold you and walk you through every single step of it so that you understood the tool, you felt comfortable with it for you to go build out your policies and make it good to go before you turned it on. We're there with you to make sure that you are successful. So real quick, Harish, I want to pause. Just to, again, reiterate, 10-week deployment, 12 minutes. That's why this is a game changer. The Clever and Identity Automation partnership is massive for the K-12 industry because it allows districts who did not have any identity management in place because of either complexity or cost to have an option to be able to do that, because every district deserves the security that this provides. So the last thing I'm going to show in the project, or in the product, sorry. What we just looked through was the deployment. How do you set it up? How do you get it running? But where's the benefit for IT? Your end users, your teachers and students are never going to see this. Your IT admins are going to get to see this, which is pretty cool, which is the admin portal. So let me log in real quick. When I log into Clever IDM Enterprise, I'm going to be presented with 4 options. So the 4 modules that I have available to me in the admin portal are a files module. Within the files module, this is where all those logs that I was talking about are stored. So I would go to files if I want to look at, hey, what did the last job do? What were the actions that were taken? I can get my logs from there. The people module is what we're looking at here. So I'm looking specifically under the teacher's view. This is where I see the teacher accounts that are a part of the sync and part of the lifecycle management, and I can do administration on their accounts here. So let's look at old Jeff Johnson. Jeff just got hired. He was that teacher that we hired at City High. He's brought in. We thought it was a great hire. Unfortunately, in this scenario, let's say Jeff got called into OOPS. So OOPS is what we called in the district that I came from. It was the Office of Professional Standards. You didn't want to get called into OOPS. If you got called into OOPS, it's because you made an OOPS. So let's say somebody said something that Jeff needed to be called into OOPS for. OOPS calls IT and says, hey, Jeff Johnson needs to have all his stuff frozen immediately. Okay, IT, you can either go into Active Directory users and computers, you can go into the Google admin console, you can go into all of these different systems to do this one at a time, or you can just come in the admin console, find Jeff Johnson, and click disable. When you click disable and click yes, it's going to disable and deactivate all of his access, all of his accounts across the board, remove him from the security groups that he was in. He now can't access any of his digital resources. So you can go check emails, files, any of that stuff, directory shares. You have the ability to do that. In less nefarious scenarios, which is fun to say, I can come in here and let's say that he just locked his account. I can come in and just very easily unlock his account for him. I can change his password and give him the option to reset it the next time he logs in. I can reset his challenge responses. But this is where I can do my administrative work in a single place so that it syncs to all of the platforms in a automatic and secure way. The other thing that I want to touch on in the people module within Clever IDM Enterprise is that sponsorship option that we were talking about. So these are people who are coming in from the feed. If I have somebody who is coming who needs to be on here for only 2 days, I come up here to add person, and I am going to bring in, let's say he's a good friend of mine and I know him and that's why I'm the sponsor. So my good friend is The Rock. We go way back. Don't even worry about it. So his email, for those who don't know, is trock@gmail.com, I assume. So I would enter in his first name, his last name, his email address, and then I am the sponsor because I'm the one creating this account. From there, I'm going to say he only needs access through Friday, through the end of the week. I'm going to give him a claim code of 12345 because I'm lazy. I'm then going to call my buddy T-Rock and say, hey, go log in. It's trock@gmail.com. You enter the claim code 12345, set your own password, and you're off and running. I create his account. Come the end of the week, whether he's still here or not, I'll get a notification saying his account is about to expire. I can extend it if he needs more access. If he doesn't, I let it expire and he's automatically removed from the system at the end of the week. So no more orphaned accounts sitting out there as threat vectors with live credentials as just back doors for malicious actors to get into your network. Last 2 things I want to show you in the product are the roles module. So within the roles module, this is where your groups, distribution lists, and roles exist. So within this, I'm pulling all my security groups out of Active Directory. If I want to create any type of distribution list in 365, I can do that. And then within it, I can see in my syncs who the owners are. I can see whether it's being synced to AD, to G Suite, or 365, and it doesn't have to. I can Click here to see who all of the members are, who's pending or removing, who's pending being added or removed, when the last sync was. I can statically add a user. I can statically exclude a user, or I can create a filter that will dynamically include and exclude people. So let's say I was a teacher at Martin High School. The filter I would create there would be any active user who has an employee type of teacher who is at Martin High School would be a member of this group. So if I, as the user, end up moving to, let's say, Jabroni High School, and I'm no longer at Martin, then that would mean I no longer fit within the filter, and I would automatically be pulled out of it and automatically placed in the group for Jabroni High. And then the last one is reports. So all of this helps from a security standpoint if it is auditable. So I have the ability to go create any report that I want based on the data that's available. There are some that come just canned out of the box that are there. So if I want to see like how many accounts were created in a certain time period, how many passwords were changed in the last 7 days, these just come with it that you can run at any point. But then there's also the option of the community, where you can go download reports that other users have created for their districts and put out to the community. You can look at the details to make sure it works for you, and then you just import it, you can modify it, you can run it yourself. So this is the admin portal that will make your life easier as an IT operator. Your end users, however, won't see this. So if they're using the Clever portal today, they will keep using the Clever portal. Your teachers, your students, that's where their digital learning is happening. That's their digital classroom. So that's where they're going to go. This is the admin option for IT. Whew. All right. That was a lot. But what I wanted to display was everything we just showed you is indicative of what is on this plan here that we just knocked out in about 20 minutes. So you'll need to come in understanding where do your users get placed in the OU structure? What are the requirements to be in groups? That's legwork that I'm not minimizing, but the actual product itself is there and available for you to go in and do. Harish, they just heard a lot. Where do they go next?
Thanks, Carter. Well, I love that you were able to take us all through that really, really detailed demo to see the product in action. But everyone, if you want more information, please go to the website. That's cleveridmenterprise.com as a first blush to be able to get some additional information.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you guys both so much, Carter and Harish. We do have about 2 minutes left of our designated 45-minute time block, but we're going to go ahead and start with our Q&A session. And for those who weren't on the line at the beginning when I explained, we very well may run over this 45-minute time block. So you're free to stay on the line, or you can leave if you need to. We'll be sending out a recording of the presentation today, as well as all of their questions that have been asked with answers alongside them. So questions, Carter, how long does it take to implement Clever IDM Enterprise by Rapid Identity?
Yeah, as we just saw, as long as it takes you to go through and click buttons. That's the beauty of it. Is what we try to say is set the expectation that the deployment should be in a couple of days. And that is taking into account timing, scheduling from the customer perspective to make sure that they have enough time to go in and do the setup and fill out the policies and gather what they need. But the tool itself, you just saw how long it takes.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So Harish, question for you. How does Clever IDM Enterprise work with the new rostering partnership with Google Classroom?
Got it. So many of you might have seen our announcement last week. Really, really exciting, our partnership with Google. So Clever IDM Enterprise, our identity management solution, is different than the Google Classroom rostering integration that we announced last week. Google Classroom solution is really automatically setting up your Google Classrooms for the entire district and keeping those rosters updated with the SIS via Clever. Clever IDM Enterprise, again, is our full identity management solution, really for provisioning accounts and then managing them through the entire lifecycle for not only Google Workspace, but also including Active Directory and Microsoft 365. I'd say that being able to use both Clever IDM Enterprise and Google Classroom rostering integration together can really help you manage your entire Google account needs all in one place, which is Clever.
Awesome. Carter, this one is for you. Is there a free trial or a trial version available for districts that are interested?
Yeah, so I would recommend that anybody who's interested in finding out what the options are that are available to them, reach out, one, via the website at cleveridmenterprise.net, or just reach out to your Clever customer success manager and start the conversation there so that we can find exactly what's needing to happen for your situation.
Awesome. Carter, this one is also for you. What if I'm already a Rapid Identity customer and I'm using Clever for rostering and portal?
Yeah, so first off, good for you. Like you made a wise decision on both fronts from there. Yeah, Rapid Identity standalone, so not Clever IDM Enterprise, but the Rapid Identity traditional platform, it works with Clever just fine. So we coexist in the ecosystem in the same way. We really view each other as augmenting each other's offerings as opposed to any type of competition or conflicting within that environment for a district. So if you're already leveraging Rapid Identity and Clever, what I would say is nothing's going to change. But if you wanted to dig into that further, I would absolutely recommend reaching out to your identity automation customer success manager to review your situation and see if there's any opportunities where it might be beneficial for you.
Okay, cool. Harish, this one is for you. When is Clever IDM Enterprise available?
Amazing. Yes, implementations are targeted to begin in June. And so really excited to be able to work through this speedy process to get things up and running well ahead of back to school.
Awesome. Okay, Carter, where does the ID code come from? And does the user receive an email to their personal account? How does that work?
Yeah, so it depends on the onboarding setup as far as what the district is looking for. But the code itself, it is just for the employee, their SysID. So they are given that as part of their onboarding process so that they know what that is, but it's not just written on a sheet of paper and handed out anywhere else. It is just provided as far as what they have available to them.
Okay, perfect. Carter, this one is also for you. So in this specific case, students are not put into AD, only Google. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, absolutely. So if students are in AD and not Google, what we would do is come here and we would say for students, I don't want them to go to Google. And if I don't want them to go 365, they're just going to AD there. It's as simple as that.
Perfect. And then another Google question. We have two Google domains, one for staff and one for students. Does it provision the users to both based on user type?
Yeah, great question. So yes, it does. When I come in here for my student policy, I'm selecting what the student domain is. So all student users would go to this domain here, and then I'd build out my OU structure accordingly. For employees, I would select the domain here as far as employees. So for staff and for teachers, this could be the same as students. It could not be the same for students, but kind of doesn't matter. So yes, if you have a multi-domain setup, as long as it's the same Google tenant, then you're fine.
Okay, cool. And are hybrid implementations available and just doing, like, could we do a hybrid implementation and just do students through Clever IDM?
I would need to, what do you mean by the question of hybrid? If it's just students through Clever IDM?
It says, could we do hybrid implementation and just do students through Clever IDM?
Sure. So I'm going to assume that question from a hybrid perspective is somebody who has Rapid Identity today, and they're looking to do their employees with Rapid Identity lifecycle management and looking to do students with Clever IDM Enterprise. Can you do that? Absolutely. Yeah.
Great. Alrighty, well, those are all of our questions. So we just want to say thanks again for everyone joining us, and we hope everyone has a great day.